Good morning, friends. Thank you for coming out in this Arctic tundra for our annual congregational meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start first with opening prayer by Pastor Amy.
Let us pray. Most holy and glorious God, it is a privilege to gather here as your people. It is just an honor and a joy to be this family of church. God, I give you so much thanks for all of those that are gathered here, all of those that are with us in spirit, all of the hard work that has gone into this presentation and to keep this conversation going, and in all that we say and do glorify you. So God, help us to do that. Help us to be mindful of our neighbors. Help us to give thanks for the things that we see you in. And God, just help us in the next steps forward. And we know that you are the reason we do all of this, because you are so good and you sent your Son for us. So God, we give you thanks for this meeting and for all that are here and for this congregation. To you all glory and thanks. And all God's people said, amen.
Okay, so we'll move over to the next slide. And I'd like to mention beforehand, if anyone is, having a phone call later with God or any sort of connection, you can let him know that our trial period as what it would be like to live in Alaska. I think we're all pretty happy. We know now we don't need it, and we can end that trial period earlier. So thanks again for making it out in these very, very cold temperatures, and I'm glad that we actually were able to navigate around the nor'easter that the southern part of the country is getting, and that we could actually have this meeting in person. So really excited to go through this presentation with you. So 2025, year in review, and I've called this previously kind of St. Philip's by the numbers, and there's a lot on here. Oh, we didn't move the slide presentation yet, but we will. And so there's just a lot to go through. A lot happened over the last year. So I'd kind of like to level set and remind everybody that St. Philip's was an organization that started in 1955. So we've been running as a thriving, active church for 70 years, and we celebrated that last year. And in that time, we've also been able to celebrate our time with our staff. 23 years with Pastor Patrick, 2 years with Pastor Amy, 8 years with Lauren, our choir director, 15 years with Stephen, our music director, and 22 years with Lisa, our office assistant. And I think that speaks to the amazing work that they do, the camaraderie they have together, and the community that we've built in this church. Last year, we also had 9 baptisms of sweet babies. Over the course of the 2024-2025 time, there were 7 children who went through their first communion. We had 7 youth get confirmed. And we saw 2 of our high school seniors graduate into college and received quilts that were so graciously created by our pinners and knotters. I'm going to skip over because I have the liberty, because I'm the one leading this meeting, but I'm going to go over to the middle yellow section talking about kind of our membership. We have now gotten to 510 active enrolled members. And those span across 12 states. And I know you're thinking, okay, well, we're like near 4 states, but how about the rest of those states? And that's just a true testament to when folks go away to college and they still consider this church their home. And folks who end up leaving to go to be closer to family, that this church is still one that they believe in and contribute and consider their membership. We also have a 1-month-old, it says 4-month-old, but she's 1 month old. Rosemarie Di Fiore is our youngest member, and our oldest member is Witold Vic Brick at 102 years old. Overall, Our 510 members represent 185 giving units, so essentially families. And just last year, we enrolled another 45 new members. So when pastors speak about how this congregation is growing, it truly is growing. And on average, between in-person visits and online, we see average attendance on a weekly basis at about 317 people, which is also very impressive. So I'd like to kind of go down a little bit to that orange box, talking about kind of the work that we've done here at St. Philip's, right here at our church and on our property. I spoke with Phil and Mary Duncan via email and asked them, like, so guys, what have you accomplished this year as the habitat restoration crew and the environmental stewardship team? Well, they planted 300 native grass plugs, by the way. They worked and removed 9 invasive species and are working to keep them under control. And I don't know if you know, but I'm gonna let you know. Native species, non-native species, multiflora, garlic mustard, stilk grass, wineberry vines, honeysuckle, phragmites, lesser celandine, and autumn olive. I actually didn't know honeysuckle was not a native plant, and I'm sad about that, but I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. Phil said it was too hard to kind of count the amount of hours. There were scores of hours that were put in by members of this congregation to keep this area that we love so much in line with kind of our overall goals and vision of being good environmental stewards of this land. This year, we continued our work with Hilltop, and we're so gracious to Liz Stirk and Tom Krapp for their continued relationship with Hilltop Lutheran Neighborhood Center. We donated and collected 35 Christmas gifts for 35 children. And we also collected 90 Thanksgiving baskets, which we continue to do, and you guys continue to support so well. And thank you so much. Moving over to the middle of the slide, we are now at 20 children in Kids Club. That is pre-K through 5th grade. And that is a 100% increase from 2024 to 2025. That speaks to the amazing commitment of our Sunday school teachers, Anna Greeter and Katie Gustatus. Without your commitment, I wouldn't be volunteering for that role. So thank you so much for all that you do and how exciting you make that program for our kids. We now have 15 kids in youth group, and that's from ages 6th grade to 12th grade. And that's a 25% increase in membership, which is also just incredible because I think generally speaking, as kids get older, they find different paths. And so the fact that we are growing is also an incredible testament to the camaraderie and the fellowship that we have here. And you know, these organizations, Sunday school and youth group, they meet regularly, you know, every week for Sunday school and every week for breakfast club. But in addition to that, they meet on average one time a month outside, whether it's you know, going to a movie or a pool party or whatnot. They find love by getting together more often than not, just coming in for kind of regular meetings. So I also think that that's just a wonderful, wonderful stat to report on. This year was also a very big year in terms of our capital campaign projects. 3. We raised $630,000 from everybody to support 3 very large projects. That was the expansion of the parking lot and the finishing of the basement, as well as sponsoring a well to be built in Kenya. With respect to the well, that changes the life of more than 5,000 Kenyans. In addition to that, it will also provide water to more than 1,000 livestock. And that's incredible that we were able to see the vision and the need and extend our reach internationally. With the work we did here, the parking lot expansion added 69 new parking spots. We finished 5 rooms in the basement, which included 2 more classrooms, the bathrooms, and storage. And then we have a new elevator, which I think runs at a very responsible speed. So very, very, very thoughtful. So, a lot of work went in from a lot of you guys in this congregation to foster that through to completion. It was not easy, but it was impressive. And we'll talk more about that as we go through this meeting. I want to highlight the trip that we took nationally as a congregation. 20 folks went to Western North Carolina and spent 480 hours working to restore and help families who were devastated by the hurricane. We also hosted 4 Family Promise Weeks, and thank you so much to Marty Budd and Rebecca Bardenhagen for continue that ministry so well. Another ministry that should receive a ton of accolades is our Grocery Club, and that's spearheaded by Nancy Zanato and the entire Grocery Club ministry. We serve 70 families in the Wilmington area. And last year alone, and I was speaking with Mike Ingarten about this, in lieu of our federal support that we would receive through the food bank, which is no longer available to us, we had to pivot quickly and figure out how we could still work to help these 70 families and provide food on a regular basis. And with Mike's connections and our ability to kind of buy at wholesale rates, he calculated that the amount of food that we brought in was 5,247 pounds. And that does not include the amount that you guys have contributed on a weekly basis. And if you allow me to take some liberties with math, I would, double that. So we're talking a ridiculous amount of food that you guys have so graciously given to help support families in the area that are in desperate need of this extra support during these times. So that represents 202 individuals, and they come twice a month for distributions. And then over the summer, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that there was, during the Tower of Food, we collected 12,112 items in coordination with Limestone Presbyterian, and that also helped to fill up our food bank for Grocery Club as well as theirs. And I also thought this was amazing because you do a bit of a deep dive into this, this organization to see kind of how everything runs, and we have more than 30 ministries. I'm going to read them for you real quick. Altar Guild, Bread Baking, Worship Assistants, Choir, Dinners of 8, Owls, Large and Small Group, Christian Ed, Family Ministry, Women's Ministry, Men's Ministry, Youth Group, Environmental Stewardship, Stephen Ministry, Shepherding Team, Pinners and Otters, Koinonia, Widow and Widowers, Alzheimer's Dementia Caregiver Support Group, Hub Theology, Homeless Care Kits, Grocery Club, Family Promise, Kenya, Wilk Ministry, Outreach, Refugee Ministry, Property Finance, Fellowship, and Worship and Music. And there might be some I'm forgetting because that's hard. I invite you to join one of those if you aren't already involved in 1 or 20 of them at this point. But within those ministries, you all have provided innumerable, countless volunteer hours, hugs given and received, kind words exchanged, and just overall helping hands to continue running St. Philip's as well as you guys do. So we'll move over to the next slide. So what does that mean for 2026? Because we set the bar pretty high in 2025. So I'd say the first 4 bullets here are carries over from 2024. And I think those are kind of just foundational to our mission. So we'll continue to serve local community food insecurity via Grocery Club, Family Promise, Hilltop, LCS, and others. As we said, we've kind of figured out a way to work around the lack of funding and working with members of the congregation who can help us get food at wholesale rates so that we can still provide for the communities in need of our support. We will continue to advance our environmental stewardship initiatives, and we are working with the environmental stewardship team, spearheaded by Dave Porter, looking at the opportunity to install solar panels here by way of grants that would be free of charge to St. Philip's, and that would help reduce overall electrical utility costs, which would be, a huge improvement over our budget. We will continue local, national, and international outreach, and I think all of you have expressed your interest in doing that we can do so much here, but we've also have, with the strength in our numbers and the strength in our giving and just the overall motivation to continue outward into national and international outreach, and so that will continue. And as I stated earlier, we have 30 ministries, and so we will continue to educate and care for one another through those ministries. And like I said, I invite you to join one or create one if you think there's a hole that needs to be filled. So what is new for 2026 is launching a strategic and visioning process. So I'd say about every 5 years, this is a process that we try to go through, and that's to kind of evaluate where we've been, where we currently are, and where we'd like to go. And the last visioning process happened just before COVID, and that kind of had us packed out for the next 5 years or so. So we're maybe a little behind in getting on this, but we've been quite busy, and no time like the present. So, and what's amazing about the strategic planning and visioning process is a lot has come from those commitments. We have actually seen several new ministries and programs emerge, including Family Promise, which St. Philip started the entire homelessness ministry for Newcastle County, Delaware here, which is now kind of the Family Promise chapter that we have in the area. Small groups, adult small groups came out of the visioning process, and that's been serving us for at least the last 15 years. This building came from a visioning process, and that was the idea to serve more people within and outside of St. Philip's. The building expansion that we just went through, that was kind of a continuation of seeing the need that we are continuing to grow, and we needed to kind of meet that need. The Well in Kenya, we, as well as our refugee ministry, we saw that we wanted to do something kind of beyond our local walls. And so, going out to Kenya, and I think continuing that relationship is every expectation that we have here. And so many more have come from the visioning process. So I think this is going to be a very exciting time. We'll start putting that together shortly, and if there's anything that you would like to contribute, we welcome you to do that. And so I think this, long-range plan does provide us with purpose and direction, and I'm excited to see kind of what we all come up with. So if we move to the next slide, I think we will start reviewing our finances from 2025 and 2026, and we will bring Terry up for that.
So we're going to start by looking at what happened during 2025. We had budgeted income, and I apologize. I need the slide. I need the slide closer. We had budgeted income of $533,000, and our actual income was $542,000. The ministry expenses that we budgeted were $637,000, and our actual expenses were $601,000. So last year at this time, we passed a budget with a deficit of $104,000. We did close that gap a little bit, but we did finish this year with a deficit, again, of $58,000. We also had a deficit in 2024. So we're kind of on a path that is not sustainable. So we're looking at ways to correct the situation. The Finance Committee for years has been saying we can't keep passing these budgets with deficits. I hear your voice less in my head whenever we do that, saying it's just not sustainable. So what we're looking at for 2026, we can do the next slide. The income that we have budgeted for 2026 is $523,000. Where this number comes from is the pledge cards that you all fill out in the fall when we have that pledging campaign. Mike Berkheimer is our financial secretary. He collects all those cards. He also looks at the historical income of people who give that don't pledge, and he comes up with a number that he is comfortable with that we can count on coming in. So that number for 2026 was $523,000. Now the budgeted expenses this year are $617,000. This is actually a decrease in budgeted expenses from 2025. Council has worked very hard at trying to reduce these expenses anywhere that they could, but it's not an easy thing to do. Most of the expenses in our budget are fixed costs. We're talking about salaries, the mortgage, just the cost of maintaining this building. It kind of is what it is. There's not a lot of wiggle room. I commend the staff this year in an effort to keep costs under control. The entire staff has agreed to forego raises this year because that is a big increase every year in the budget. So they are doing their part to try and keep these expenses under control. The rest of the expenses, when the finance committee makes up this budget, we go to all the different committees and ask them what their requirements are for the year. I think council did go back and ask if there was any cuts that could be made, and they did do that. So we're kind of at what we feel like is a minimum budgeted expenses this year. So at this point in the presentation, the next slide that I usually have is one telling you how we're going to cover this deficit with the surpluses that we have. Unfortunately, this year I do not have that slide. We do not have any surpluses available to cover these deficits. The reason we don't is there's two things. One is the capital campaign, which we started in the beginning of 2024. It was a three-year campaign. So we're still getting pledges in to pay for the parking lot and the basement and the well, which were finished last October. So we had to kind of take money out of our reserves to cover those expenses. The second issue was when we ran the capital campaign in 2024, the anticipated costs of those projects was about $800,000. They ended up being $1.1 million. So it was an extra $300,000 that we did have as cash in the bank, and we did cover all those costs without having to borrow additional funds. But it does mean that we had a bit of a cash crunch at the end of 2025. The church has about $200,000 in what we refer to in the financial statements as dedicated funds. Those are funds it's money that's been given to the church, but it's earmarked for special purposes. So we have a fund it's a Good Samaritan fund. If members are in trouble financially, they can come to us for help. There's a fund for prepaying the mortgage. There's a fund for the grocery club, for women's ministry, for youth group, memorials. There's a lot of different funds. We actually ended up having to borrow money from those funds to cover the capital costs. So the money that's coming in now from the capital campaign, the remaining pledges, is just replenishing those funds. So we do not have any longer the surpluses that we've had in the past just sitting in the bank. The cash balance at the end of 2025 was $138,000. We started the year with $951,000. So just to kind of give you an idea of, where that money went. It was spent on the parking lot and the basement. So one thing that we did kind of look at was just the historical picture, and we wanted to share that with you of where we've been and kind of where we're going. So the last time we had these large surpluses was because of special circumstances, I'll say. In 2021, that $50,000 surplus that we had was due to COVID money. It was a grant that we got from the government. It's a paycheck protection loan that was forgiven, so we got to keep that money. 2022 was kind of an average year, and we were pretty much even. In 2023, we had a large surplus because we only had one pastor for 9 months of the year. That was the transition between Pastor John and Pastor Amy. So that's why we had that extra money. So really, we're looking at 24 and 25 as kind of being average years now for what the expenses look like for this church, for the ministries that we have, the building expenses, and it's what we anticipate going forward. Those costs are only going to increase. A lot of the costs have increased with inflation. Again, this year, the staff agreed not to take salary increases. You know, those annual increases, just cost of living increases that we give to the salary or to the staff are probably $10,000 to $12,000 of the budget increase every year. So our costs are going to go up over time. But we did have a lot of other money coming in. The bottom section of this slide just shows the capital campaign money that came in. What was pledged was almost $630,000, and we have collected so far $525,000 of that. So there is still a lot of money coming into the church. It just wasn't for the operating expenses. Does anybody have any questions about the budgeting process, financial statements? They were all in the annual report that was emailed out to you. I don't know how many of you actually looked at those. They are available to you. I usually get asked about the mortgage. We did pay down $34,000 of the mortgage last year, so our mortgage balance is a little over $700,000. The mortgage was recast last year at current interest rates, so we have a high rate on the mortgage right now. I believe that we are allowed to refinance the mortgage one time. So I have been watching rates. The finance committee will keep an eye on that because we'd pay $6,000 a month on the mortgage. It used to be $4,000 went to principal and $2,000 went to interest. And since it was recast in June, that's actually reversed. So we're only paying $2,000 a month now in principal and $4,000 in interest. Yes.
With the solar panel project, have you been able to get estimates as to how much it will save every month or over a year's time?
So the electric it was almost $14,000 for the year.
Okay.
So we'll save that amount when we get those solar panels. We will have a small loan that I think the loan payment's $150 a month initially, but we should be able to get a grant. I was told that will also pay that off. So theoretically, it should be zero cost to us to get those solar panels. Any other questions? Yes.
If all the money comes in for the capital campaign, then that gets us even.
That is just paying back those dedicated funds, yeah. So we don't have extra money to cover the budget deficit unless we borrow from those funds again. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Amanda. I was going to talk to you about what we're going to do.
No big deal. No big deal. Okay, so friends, I have some prepared remarks because I think it's just the best way I would be able to deliver it too. So, and I wanted to make sure I touched over everything. So, so friends, I want to take a few minutes to talk together about the budget you just reviewed and what it means to us as a community. First, I want to say this clearly and with confidence. This budget does reflect a strong, healthy, and thriving church. Our Finance Committee and Council have spent significant time reviewing it line by line, asking all of the hard questions, and making sure it aligns with who we are and where we're going. And as Terry said, about 75% of this budget represents fixed costs, the basic infrastructure that allows ministry, worship, and staff support, and outreach to happen at all. So there just simply aren't that many levers for us to pull without impacting the core of what we do so well. And for many years, St. Philip's has approved deficit budgets and still finish the years in the black. And that history speaks to generosity, faithfulness, and careful stewardship. The last 2 years, 24 and 25, were different though. We moved through significant capital projects, important investments that strengthened our facilities and expanded our capacity for ministry. And those were intentional decisions that we all made, and those carried forward costs. And as a result, these were the first years where the deficit remained. At the same time, something important is happening here. This church is growing. Membership is increasing. Our local, national, and international outreach continues to expand. We are active, visible, and making a real difference. That is not a picture of a struggling organization. It's the picture of a church that is alive and engaged. And I also want to share something that speaks deeply to the spirit of this community, and Terry highlighted this already. But without any prompt or expectation, our entire staff chose not to accept a cost of living increase for 2026. And I want to be very clear, that is not a lever that we can or should expect to pull when we face a budget deficit. Fair and sustainable compensation for our staff matters deeply, and this decision was entirely theirs. In this case, the staff made a unanimous and thoughtful choice to show their support in a very, very tangible way, viewing it as a one-time gift grounded in their belief that this deficit is short-term and their confidence in the long-term vision of St. Philip's. And we are profoundly grateful for their generosity, their leadership, and their shared commitment to the ministry we're building together. So historically, as churches grow, giving does not always increase at the same pace, and that's normal. People give according to their ability, their circumstances, and their season of life they're in. And we respect that deeply, and we always will. What we're naming today is simply this. As a congregation, we are about 15% short of a balanced budget. Closing that gap would allow us not just to sustain what we do, but continue doing it well and with confidence. So this is not a message of pressure, but rather an invitation. If you are in a place where you are able, we are asking to take a look at your giving history. If you find that you can extend a little more, whether that's an increase, a one-time gift, or a renewed commitment, it directly supports the ministry, outreach, and community life that defines St. Philip's. And also, if you are not in a place to do that right now, please hear this clearly. You are no less valued, no less important, and no less a part of this church. We honor every contribution, financial and otherwise. That makes this community what it is. This moment invites us not to pull back, but to move forward together, trusting that our shared commitment will carry St. Philip's into a strong and faithful future. This is our church. This is our moment. And together, we have everything we need to keep it moving forward. So with that, I want to make sure there's space for your questions, and we feel it's important to have this conversation about giving before approving the budget, so that we are fully transparent And while we are a strong and vibrant organization, we also take our responsibility as financial stewards very seriously. This is how we are going to work together to bridge the deficit gap. If there's anything you'd like clarified or discussed before we move to a motion on the budget, we welcome that now. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. So I think if we move a slide forward and then maybe one more slide forward, 'cause that was my talk about narrowing the gap. I think we are in a position to vote to approve the 2026 budget. Again, I'll wait one more moment to see if anyone has any questions that they'd like to lift up. Yes. We contemplated this at council, and quite honestly, there's not, as we've been trying to articulate, not a lot that we can do to change anything about our budget. With costs being where they are, and most of them being fixed, I don't think there's a whole lot that we can do other than to kind of maybe look inward a little bit and see if there's an opportunity for us to increase giving. Donna.
I'd like to speak to different committees. Council members are liaisons to the committees. When we were tasked with looking at this budget that we deficit, we went back to committee heads and we asked for them to take another look. Is there any way to cut what we're doing? Just the expense, not the gift, not what we do, but the expense of doing. Can we tighten the rein? Can we even do 10%? Can we work within what was last year's amount if you submitted an increase for 26? And I will just tell you from my experience, it pulls on the heart of the volunteers and of our church members to have to tighten up. So I ask you, as a council member and as a daughter of this church member, to please look in your heart, in your wallet, just like we tightened up our own budgets at home, to see if there is any amount that you can see yourself increasing, knowing that if you can't, it's understood. But I've also seen congregations, and this one included, move forward when there was a deficit budget and with faith in our Lord and Savior and in our Creator. But the Holy Spirit work within us. Make it possible not only for us to meet this budget, this I consider a momentary crisis for us, but to see us thrive and to see us even be at a surplus at the end. That's even $1. That's even 50 cents, whatever, but to see that we continue to serve our neighbors here, our neighbors nationally, and our neighbors abroad.
Are there any? Yes.
What's the best or easiest way to let the church know if we want to increase our budget?
You're getting electronic, you can do it yourself on the website, or if you are not comfortable doing that, contact the network. are not in a tight cash crunch right now. So we do not need lump sum if it's easier for you to make those payments as they're scheduled. I did want to make one comment just about the faith I have in this congregation. The amount of money that we took in after Patrick sent out his letter in I think it's November, end of October, November, about just us having some issues with cash flow. There were a number of members who made extra contributions to the capital campaign when they found out about the cost overruns. There's other people who are just giving extra money. Like, this congregation steps up. I have tremendous faith in all of you, all of us together, being able to get through this.
If I could just also just say, one of the things that even I realized as the pastor is that for a long time we relied on kind of our growth to kind of deal with kind of the budgetary growth as well. And kind of with the stresses that have been put on it between the three things that I was naming in announcements today, I began to realize, you know what? I've been here, as we saw on the slide, I've been here 23 years. I have not increased my giving in more than a decade as your pastor. I mean, I give generously, I believe, but I didn't increase it. That's not realistic. It's not realistic. And so, when I faced this, what I did was I just contacted Mike, wherever Mike is, and I just said, hey, you know what? I haven't done this in a while. I need to change my pledge from this year. And so that begins to get factored in. And so for a lot of us who have been here for a long time, that's just the reality. And hey, I'm no different than you. I got a second kid heading to college. My electric bill was $400 last month. Insanity. It's never been more than $250. It's crazy. So, there's a lot of stresses that we're all feeling. So, and I come out of a congregation where it was always money, 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 money. We've never been that way. We've never been that way. And it drove me crazy then. I don't want us to become that congregation. But Terry's right. This congregation always, always steps up. Approving the budget, to Harold's question, I think it was Harold. I'm on this side, Harold, but I think it was you that asked. What do we do if we not do it? What we do by doing it is saying, you know what? Together we're going to figure this out. Because that's how we do our ministry. That's how we've always advanced. We're not going to keep cutting things down, because cutting means, every time we cut from here on out, somebody's going to get hurt. It is. They're either within our walls or they're outside the walls. Somebody gets hurt. We're going to lean in and we're going to figure this out. And that's my confidence, because I have the same faith that Terry expressed in all of you. Anytime that there's ever been a need at this church, you always step up, and you do it in ways that exceeds what I think. There was a day that one of the finance guys came into my congregation, or came into my office, and he goes, I don't want you to worry about this. We're going to get through this. And I'm like, I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried. Is it a realistic issue we have to deal with? Yeah, and that's why we're being honest. But I'm not worried. I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about what's happening in our lives. Those are the things that I'm focused on. And I kind of said to him, I'm worried about you guys because we've had so much pastoral care need this last year. We've had so many people pass away that we love, people who are sick, people who are struggling. That's my worry. I'm not worried about, the finances and all that. We'll figure that out. I don't know. We have to go back and figure things out if we don't approve it. I don't know what we do, like you said, but voting on it says, you know what? I'm a part of this church. I believe in where we're going. I believe in what we're doing. We've always come together in these times. We're going to do it again, and we're going to blow this out of the water. So that's just kind of my thought about the whole thing. And I know the staff feels that way too, and that's why the staff just was like, you know what? We're going to throw our hats in the ring. We're going to figure this out. We're with you. Let's do this. So I just wanted to express that confidence and that excitement, because I'm not scared and worried. So I meant, Terry, I think that's what you were saying as well. We're going to figure this out, so it's all good.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so the big question is, do I have a motion to approve the 2026 budget as presented? Is that a question or a motion? Second? Okay. You seconded? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to the next slide. And we will say thank you and farewell to 4 council members. Corky Bai, Liz Freeberger, Dave Porter, Carol Johnson, thank you for serving your 1 and or 2 terms on council. You provided endless guidance and support, and we're sad to see you go, but so thankful that you were able to be committed to that time. So thank you very much. I think we have something that I forgot to pick up.
I was supposed to get this to you before.
I don't know. So many logistics. All right. Corky, Liz, Dave, Carol, can you please come up? Dave Porter. Am I supposed to shake your hand? Oh, good. Corky. Thank you so much. You'll be back on soon, right? Okay. Carol. Liz. Nobody takes notes like you. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. All right. Moving right along, if we go to the next slide, we're going to go through our election of new council members. So we have 4 nominees, all who would be serving their first term. We have Rebecca Litterst, Kate McGovern, Steve DeCrulu, and Rebecca Bardenhagen. So I think it's appropriate that I ask for a motion to accept this slate of council members to be elected into their roles.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Getting through the business. Thank you so much, and we welcome you guys to council. So excited to see you at our first February meeting. We are a good group of functioning people, so can't wait. All right, Servant of God Awards on the next slide. All right, so we have 3 awards to give out. The first award goes to Terry Sutter. Terry. There you go. Let's see, Terry. Just hold there, and I'm going to talk about you for a little bit. So, Terry has been a member of St. Philip's since the early 1970s. Most notably, Terry serves as the treasurer of St. Philip's and has for at least 25 years. And she's the reason we are so organized when it comes to our finances. But Terry has also been a leader for over 6 years in our refugee ministry, serving as a team leader, but also helping the refugee families we support with so many aspects of orienting themselves to daily life. Terry is an assisting minister in worship, part of the choir, and jumps in to help anywhere she's able. Thank you so much, Terry. The next recipients are John and Jody Newcomer. John Newcomer has served as council president for at least 3 different times and has done countless tours on council alone. He has served as chair of the call committee, which helps select our pastors 2 or 3 different times. John has supervised pastoral interns. He has chaired visioning teams here at St. Philip's. John is a Stephen minister, part of the choir, and assisting minister. Jody is also part of the choir and an active leader in women's ministry at St. Philip's, most recently helping to lead the annual spring women's retreat at her home at the beach. Jody leads midweek seasonal services with her beautiful singing voice. They had to scoot out early, so Terry will be accepting this award on their honor. Thank you. And the last award goes to Jerry and Les Butler. Of course, Jerry's recognition is given posthumously. She was, as church council president and she was a active church council president and 2-term council member. She was active in Christian ed and worship and music, where she served as the leader and overseer of our worship teams who helped lead our services on Sunday mornings. Jerry was an assisting minister, and she played handbells in the handbell choir for a time. Les has been active in the men's small group since he arrived here years ago, and he's played a key role as a leader on our finance committee and was a counter alongside Jerry. Likewise, Les has been one of the leaders in his Koinonia group as well. I'd like to welcome Les. Is Les here? Moving right along, we'll move on to the capital projects update, and I'd like to invite Mark Myers up here.
Thanks, Amanda. And I realize I am probably what is standing between you and lunch at this point. So, yeah, I come as a representative of the team of individuals that took the vision of expanding the parking lot and renovating the basement. And I'm pleased to say, I stand here today, those projects are done, and we're getting the use out of them that we envisioned. If you go to the next slide, what I wanted to do today was just provide a recap on those 2 projects. Hopefully you're able to read that. What's shown here is the kind of the formal check-ins that we had on these projects. The first one we'll look at is the parking lot, and then the second one will be the basement, focusing on just a couple of key things. You know, what was the scope of the project, and when did we envision to break ground and start the construction, and when did we expect to finish, and then of course the cost. For the parking lot, this got kicked off with a proposal to council nearly a little over 2.5 years ago in the summer of 2023. The vision was to add 69 spaces. We had gotten a couple of quotes for the main work of the parking lot back in 2021 and 2022, and that was and then we put in some allowances for some things that we knew would have to be done, like the street lights and so forth that are back there. And that was really the basis of the budget estimate that's shown there, the 450 to 600. So you can see as we progressed through time at the annual meetings, at the Together in Face, those were opportunities to bring transparency to where we were at on the project, if the scope was changing as we learned more about what was involved or what was needed. The timeline, all of this work involved numerous permits and regulatory approvals, and so this was what it looked like at those points in time. You can see that essentially the scope for this project ended the way that it started. Sure, there was little twist here and there, but essentially we ended up with 69 net spaces. It's the size and location of where we always intended it to be. From a when was it put into service, despite getting started later than we had thought, it actually finished earlier than we did. And as noted there, effective this past summer in August, it was open for business, so to speak. The cost, as you can see there, it did go up. And we'll get to a kind of a lessons learned page, but there was a couple of things that were discovered during the construction process that required additional expenses. But probably the single biggest thing is that 450 to 600 was based on a 2021, 2022 quote. And I think as you discussed for the operating expenses, the average, the cumulative inflation over that last 3 or 4 years has been about 22%. So that really accounts for a large part of that cost increase. And that was probably a lesson learned as we were going from 2023 with those check-ins. I don't think we were escalating those costs, recognizing that those costs would in fact go up. We were still anchored to that original estimate. But you can see this one, it had a fair amount of design at the time of kickoff of the project, because that sketch there, that was actually done when this church was built. It was always envisioned that we would do this parking lot. So we started that project already with a pretty good rough design of what it was going to be. If you flip to the next slide, this is pictures of the parking lot under construction. So there was, it started in November of 2024, finished in August of 2025. There was, I think, a 2 or 3 month period last winter when it was pretty much shut down due to weather. Everything was frozen solid, and it's hard to do dirt work if it's frozen solid. And then the next picture, please. This was on a night, I think Patrick provided this picture, but I think it kind of tells the story, right? Whenever this was, the parking lot's doing what it's supposed to do. It's providing parking for people that don't fit in the lot that we had here. So again, whatever event that was, people would have been parking across the street, parking on the side road, and so it's just indicative of what we envisioned for this project to provide us. If you flip to the next chart. So the basement renovation. This one has had a lot more twists and turns than the parking lot did. When this was originally brought forward to council in 2023, it was that little sketch on the left that's kind of indicative of how well the scope was defined. It was kind of a handwritten sketch. The vision as presented was we were going to provide 2 bathrooms and an elevator and a connecting hallway to the youth room that was already down there. And then I remember it well, we stood here 2 years ago today. I was sitting right over there, and we presented that plan, and it was pretty obvious that this did not meet the vision of what we wanted for the basement. So we regrouped and recognized that really to get any value from this investment in the basement, we needed to put in the classrooms and provide more storage space for the growing ministries. And so in May of 2024, you'll see there calling out that we added the classrooms and the storage areas, and that alone, that was the basis for the increased cost projections. Now at that point, it was still a very informal. We had some non-binding quotes from some of the key trades that would do that work, but we didn't have a design package. We didn't have detailed drawings. We had not heard back yet from Newcastle County on what some of the requirements would be to finish out that space. And so even though the scope was largely what we thought it would be, our understanding of what the cost would be for the implementation of that project really were incomplete. And so the January, so a year ago today, the cost was revised as shown, and there's a long list of things that basically bridge that gap as we got into the design. Just to name a few, we ended up, when the youth room was put into service, it really didn't have proper HVAC. It was running off of one of the systems up here. We weren't able to control the temperature down there, so a decision was made to put in a self-standing HVAC unit down there. When we put in the elevator, yeah, I love your comment that it runs at a responsible speed. That's one way to aggravatingly slow. The elevator, we had some choices about what type of elevator to put in, and we consciously decided to put in something that was really commercial grade. We knew that for this to serve the purpose that we needed, not to just move people, but materials up and down, we needed to do it right. So that added cost, and just there was a provision when we built this church originally that there was going to be an elevator, but it was not envisioned, exactly what size it would be, and so we had to spend considerable money to modify the foundation in the basement to allow for the elevator, and the shaft which the elevator rode in was not the right dimensions, and so suffice it to say there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into getting that responsibly designed elevator in service. There was also some learnings with the fire code. We had assumed that we could finish out the classrooms and a connecting hallway, and for emergency egress we could just walk out through an unfinished area out the back doors. Well, that turned out to be a wrong assumption. So we had to, for those that have been down there, you'll know there's a finished hallway that goes out the double doors. The doors had to be replaced. They didn't have the right, panic bars and so forth and so on. And so, it's a long, painful list of learnings that, we encountered as this project was being invested. So, there's no getting away around it that, if you look at the cost overruns associated with the capital projects, a lot of it lies in this area here. And it's I'd say a story of, the vision and the scope for this project evolved over time. I think we have a facility that'll meet our needs for the decades to come. But if you go to the next slide, this is some of the in progress pictures. Next one. Kind of the finished product. And then the final slide. I touched on a lot of these. I would just say that what's not shown on the slide, like those dates that I mentioned were when we really physically started the work, but there was a lot of effort by a lot of folks to plan and secure the permits and so forth for these projects. And so, a big thanks to the folks that contributed their time on this project. With that, open up for any questions about those two projects.
So what we've learned from those two projects, we have been that ambitious, we really know the cost up front, or we would spread it out a long period of time.
Yeah, that was actually something when we met with council in June of 2023. there was an option presented to do just that. We could have implemented a portion of the parking lot and then done kind of a phase 1, phase 2 approach, and similarly with the basement. In fact, that was the recommendation at the time, was to just do the bathrooms, right? And so what was pretty clear is, if you do things in phases, 1 + 2 is going to equal, it's going to be more expensive, albeit spread out longer. In both cases, we decided to, move forward with the full scope. It did, as far as the inflation, I will say, if you've ever worked with Newcastle County, it's just, it drug on, right? Like the anticipated start date was probably overly ambitious. Once we got going, they went pretty well. Okay.
If we move on to the next slide, I'm just going to round out the last capital project update, which was the trip that we took to Kenya to see the well that was built generously with your contribution of $80,000 to support the livelihoods of more than 5,000 Kenyans. 23 of us traveled to Kenya for what was a life-changing, emotional, eye-opening journey. They welcomed us and greeted us with open arms. We enjoyed fellowship and dancing, and they immersed us in their culture, and I think all of us are kind of forever changed. And what we coined as a once-in-a-lifetime experience, I think, is probably a two-time-in-a-life experience, or maybe more. I think the motivation when we came home was to keep those ties going, and so we have developed a Kenyan ministry, and I invite anyone who's interested to join, but I think there is motivation to keep that relationship going and seeing what else we can do as a congregation and as individuals. So that was a very successful capital project as well, so thank you all for your contributions to that. So if we move to the next slide, we are rounding out the meeting at also a respectable 1 hour and 10 minutes. So, are there any further questions or business that anyone would like to bring up? Yes.
When can we expect an update on, we're looking at operating on a deficit now. How soon can we hear if there's been any progress on getting for that?
Well, I think we do provide monthly updates. Financial statements are provided in the guidepost on a monthly basis. But if there is a preference for maybe some more forward conversation about that, we could certainly kind of incorporate that into, I would say guidepost updates seem appropriate, but if there's also, it feels necessary for us to kind of send out another letter or something like that. But I think the idea is that we remain open and transparent about how things are progressing. And I think certainly if they're not trending in the right way, you'd hear about it before, but if they are going in the right way, it is probably just lightly addressed in other kind of media forms, an email or a guidepost. So. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, that means that I am going to close the meeting and then close with prayer, right? All right, so a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you so much for making the trek out. Pastor is going to close us out with prayer.
Lord be with you. Lord God, we give you thanks and praise that you call us together. Without you, Lord, we wander and we fear and we are uncertain. But with you, all things are possible. And so we just give you thanks because you have promised to always be with us. And in confidence and faith, we just celebrate your love for us and your love for just the love we try to show one another and those in the world. As we go from this place, watch over our families, give us safety on these chilly roads, and just bless us as we seek to know you better and to serve and love the community as you have called us to do. We'll give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, before you go, you can sign up to bring food to, either to the spaghetti dinner or to Together in Faith. Oliver's out there, and he's selling tickets as well. Go in peace, serve the Lord.